It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump. Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11 yards, touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
The greatest, most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible. Over them one.
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is going to be huge.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just when I think you said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it, I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
Believe me, just watch.
Ready to take you home on a Tuesday. It is the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. Lock it in. It is a big 2-hour show. Plenty of things to talk about today. And quite honestly, most Mondays we go home and there's not a whole lot that happens at night for us to talk about. And then on Tuesday, we're trying to dig up what are the biggest stories of the week, either past or what's behind us or maybe what's ahead of us that week. But it was a rare Monday because a couple of big stories last night. First of all, they finished up the girls' high school basketball sectionals in our area from the games that were postponed on Saturday. And we had one that went as expected. In fact, a dominant win for one of our teams that played last night. But the other one, a little bit of a surprise. If you go by the regular season meeting between the two teams, you probably were surprised by who's going to advance. But when it comes to the postseason, they say you can throw out the records, and last night was a case in point. You can absolutely throw out the records because there was a team last night that has proven their mettle when it comes to postseason play. And we will talk about that. Also last night, Luka officially makes his debut for the Los Angeles Lakers. ESPN kicking themselves, wondering what they were doing there on Saturday.
Hey, you gotta take the risk though, because if he had played and they had missed it, then you look even more foolish.
You could say what you want to say, although
I'm caping for the
they kind of cut into the middle of a college basketball Saturday to try to throw a little NBA in there, thinking it was going to be all the drama and all the excitement of the Luka Doncic start in Los Angeles. Didn't happen on Saturday, but it did happen last night, and a successful debut for Luka, LeBron, and company.
Yeah, they picked a good team for him to debut against.
And Dalton Connect.
Ooh, sitting on the bench, just looking upset the whole time.
Just wondering what city he will end up in next.
Yeah, because now there's drama with the trade that was rescinded between the Lakers and the Hornets involving Mark Williams. Now Charlotte is looking for ways to, go against that rescindment of the thing and see if they can
try to circumvent the whole process of some sort.
Yeah, because it said they were taken aback by the Lakers failing his medical. So we'll see what happens.
So Charlotte believes that the Lakers doctored so-called, put that in quotes, doctored the physical.
They clearly thought he was healthy enough to pass it at least. Yeah.
Well, now what happens? Can they file a formal grievance and have an independent doctor do the physical to see if he would pass?
I'll find out. I'll see what their next step is.
I haven't followed it that closely. Quite honestly, it doesn't involve anything that I have to worry about as far as either for a broadcast or for this show. But it is kind of an intriguing storyline now that you kind of start telling me some of the details of it. But 260-447-8500, we want to know what is on your mind today. And so any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can always fire away at 260-447-8500. And I am Brett Rump along with Adam Lundy. And coming up on the show, we've got Dylan Sinn from the Journal Gazette. He will join us because both Purdue and Indiana have invaded Michigan to take on Michigan and Michigan State tonight. So we will talk to Dylan Sinn about previews of both of these contests. Also coming up in hour number 2, it's another chance for you to win. And I always say it's a chance because you do have a chance. You got a chance. I'm telling you, there's a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance, Brett.
Tuesday, time capsule trivia. You'll take on me in Tuesday Time Capsule Trivia. And we'll do that sometime after 5 o'clock. And then we get to talk to a couple of sectional championship coaches. Because, I'm kind of getting the cart before the horse. I was trying to hold back on saying who won sectionals last night, but I will just tell you, their two coaches will be joining us, one at 5:20 and one at 5:35.
How about that? Appreciate those guys making some time in a busy week, I'm sure, to join us and talk about their team so far.
All right, I'll go ahead and break it down.
All right.
Snyder gets the win over Northrop in girls sectional basketball play, and it was a bit of a surprise because Snyder had been beaten by 10 points exactly 1 month to the day prior to last night's sectional championship game, which was played at Northrop. And Snyder gets the victory, and they did it with total lockdown defense in the fourth quarter. Northrop did not get a field goal in the fourth quarter. Their only 2 points came at the free throw line, and Snyder comes from behind to defeat the Bruins 48-37. And it was a big tournament. They don't do the all-sectional teams anymore, do they?
I don't believe so.
We used to do that back in the day when I played, Sonny. Yeah, I know. I sound like Al Bundy.
Put it in the peach basket, Brett.
But they used to have all-sectional teams, but they don't do that anymore. But I'll tell you, Sanaya Sandlin should be the MVP, I think, for the Snyder Panthers, because she's somebody that averaged 7 points a game during the season. And I know she had 20-something in the semifinal game against Carroll, where Snyder avenged a regular season loss just 1 week prior and got the victory to move into the championship. And then they take on Northrop, who beat them by 10 exactly 1 month ago. Isn't it interesting that it was 1 week, 1 month, and now they're going to take on another team that they've already faced? I ought to check the date on that and just see if there's any kind of, is it a quarter of a year ago or something? But Snyder got the win over Northrop last night, and Sandlin put up, I think, 16 points?
I'll double check here.
I got the box.
You got the box score.
I got it right in front of me, and I'm just not looking at it. She had 16 points. Yeah, 5 of 7 shooting from the field.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
And so she really stepped up, and if they have a tournament MVP, she might very well be it. Of course, Snyder, led by the freshman, Janaea Cooper, who ended up in foul trouble the night we were there on Friday. She ended up picking up a couple of early fouls and ended up having to sit for a good portion of that game. But the gamble paid off for Reggie Tharp. And now, get this, Snyder has won the sectional for their 4th consecutive year.
Wow. That's very impressive.
I did some research in the SAC, and there's not a lot of 4-year streaks for sectional championships among SAC schools. Now, I don't know, once you get out of the SAC, I was trying to think of any of our area teams. I mean, I remember when there were some good teams at Garrett and all. Norwell, of course, has had some good teams. But I think Norwell has not won more than 4 or maybe 5 in a row. So 4 is pretty significant. And to do it in this case, where I would think they were the underdog for both the semifinal and the final.
Yeah.
Because they had been beaten by Carroll, their opponent in the semifinal, just a week prior, and got beat by Northrop during the regular season. So I would have thought that Snyder was considered an underdog, and yet here they are, cutting down the nets. And in fact, they went into that Carroll game with just an 11-11 record. So it's a big win to take down the sectional nets. And of course, the pressure was on Northrop, and unfortunately, in the fourth quarter, when the pressure was on, Northrop buckled.
Yeah.
And a part of that might be their youth. They do not have a senior on the roster, and so they don't have maybe that stabilizing force. And I don't know who that would be necessarily for Snyder. We're going to ask Reggie Tharp how his girls had the mental capacity and strength to come back from a deficit and do what they did in the fourth quarter to get the job done.
Yeah, 15-2 fourth quarter. I mean, that's just huge. We'll definitely want to hear how they did that.
And they will advance to take on McCutcheon.
Yeah.
And they've been assigned the Marion Regional at 4 p.m. tip-off. And, Snyder's already played McCutcheon.
They have.
They played them to open up the season, and I think this is a better version of Snyder than the one that would have started the season because that would have been like a freshman, Janaea Cooper. That would have been her first game, and they got beat by 2 points.
Oh, man.
And that was a neutral site tournament game that was played at Lake Central and back on November 9th. So Saturday will be February 15th. I just don't know that there's a significance there.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think that they only lost by 2 and that they've definitely improved throughout the season. But on the flip side of that coin is McCutcheon will have improved throughout the season as well.
Maybe.
You don't know, just no improvement at all?
No, just same team that showed up for game 1, showing up for game 25 or whatever it is. No, it'll be competitive.
Definitely.
McCutcheon's 23-3, but they don't play the kind of schedule that Snyder plays. So that game will be 4 o'clock at Marion. Also last night, no problem for the Homestead Lady Spartans. And
None.
We kind of expected this coming into the season, that Homestead was going to be a dominant team because they returned virtually the entire roster from a year ago. And they've worn the target on their back from the beginning. Sometimes that makes things a little difficult. And they've had to kind of figure it out as far as who is the star. I mean, who do you go to as your number one option? Because you've got so many different talented players. You've got a really solid shooter in Carly Mollering. You've got Gabby Helsum, who can do it inside, outside. And then you've got somebody like Maya Epps, who's got a mid-range game and can drive and attack the basket. Maybe those parts of the game better than her three-point shot at this point, but she's still young. I mean, they're all young. I mean, Homestead's going to return most of their lineup next year, too. But the bottom line is Homestead ends up getting a 30-point night from Gabby Helsum, and Homestead wins their 7th consecutive sectional championship.
Man.
I think, 3 of them or 4 of them are against Columbia City.
Yeah, that was a constant matchup there.
Last night it was against Huntington North, and they win it by a final score of 63-27. Never much doubt in this one. But the next game, there could be some doubt for Homestead. They've got to take on Hamilton Southeastern, 25-0.
Yeah, that's as far as no losses on the season. My goodness.
Nada.
That's
Hasn't
scary.
happened. Now, we'll talk to head coach Rod Parker from the Homestead Lady Spartans coming up by 5:35. Talk about the matchup, what he knows about McAlusky and the Hamilton Southeastern Royals. And I believe, now I was told by a trusted friend of the show that these two may have played a preseason scrimmage and had one of those, you know how they have the scrimmage game or two that's played a week before the season starts.
Yeah.
And so maybe they have some kind of tape against each other. But Hamilton Southeastern going to be quite the foe, and that's going to be prime time Saturday because that's at 7 o'clock at Marion.
It's going to be great, man. Shout out
Bill Green Arena.
Fantastic. Yeah, shout out to Gabby Helsum with 30 points. She was one layup away from scoring more than half of her team's points. I mean, that's huge.
Anybody, do you remember Bill Green? You don't remember Bill Green.
Unfortunately, no.
He was primarily the Marion coach of the 80s that had Jay Edwards, Lyndon Jones, and, the great teams of the 80s, all coached by Bill Green. And the arena now is named after Bill Green.
That fits.
And it was funny because I was covering the regional, the semi-state those years, and we had the little press conference in the media room in the Coliseum. Mm-hmm. And all I remember, high school basketball, how times have changed. Bill Green walks in, gets out a cigarette, lights her up, and we're sitting there in the media room as it fills with smoke. Yeah, filling up with smoke.
Definitely a different era.
Times have changed.
I don't think you could do that now.
No, I don't think you'd get away with
Give
that
your
one.
post-game speech with a Marlboro hanging out your lip.
Don't think that would work. 260-447-8500, the Parkview Sports Medicine text line. Big show on the way. We got to talk about Indiana, Purdue. They both are in battle tonight, and the big question is, who is coaching Indiana, and what kind of an Indiana do you expect? I mean, is Mike Woodson really going to coach? I mean, yes, I guess in body, spirit, whatever, it's Mike Woodson.
He's on the sideline.
But he's a lame duck coach. How much effort do you think he wants to put into, deep scout, late nights, watching film. I mean, I don't know. Is he committed enough to this group and this team that he's got something to prove?
And then from the player's perspective, do you want to play for a coach that is just going to be gone in a couple more games? And does it show as a player that the university has moved on from you as a player? That's a question.
When they take your coach out, are they saying this season's pretty well shot? We
don't believe in you.
We don't believe in you. And so we'll see. Tonight it is the Indiana Hoosiers at Michigan State in the Breslin Center against Tom Izzo. And that was a fun fact from Don Fisher yesterday.
Yeah, I like that.
All-time Big Ten wins. Tom Izzo tied Bob Knight's record.
Who's that? No, I'm just kidding.
On Saturday, he would break Bob Knight's record for all-time Big Ten victories with a win over Indiana tonight.
Oh, isn't that funny how things just work out like that? Provide those random storylines we would have never thought of, but just dates and times, my friend.
The schedule works out perfect. All right, let's find out what's happening in the world of sports. Time to look at today's top headlines with Adam Lundy.
Thanks, Brett. Well, despite the game being a blowout, Sunday night's Super Bowl game averaged a record 127.7 million U.S. viewers across television and streaming platforms for the Eagles' 40-22 victory over the Chiefs. Not only is it a 3% increase from last year, it is the second straight year the Super Bowl has reached a record audience. The Indiana Pacers have signed former Duke star and number 3 overall pick Jahlil Okafor to a 10-day contract, league sources confirmed last night. Okafor averaged 18.5 points per game on 70.4% shooting, 8.6 rebounds, and 3.5 assists for the Mad Ants during their 15-game tip-off tournament portion of the schedule. In regular season play, he's averaging 18.6 points per game on 66.9% shooting. One more for you today, Brett. Zaire Franklin spoke on another sports show earlier today and made a pitch for free agents to come and join the Indianapolis Colts. He first mentioned the addition of Lou Anarumo, saying Anarumo is a well-respected defensive coordinator in our league. Players at the Pro Bowl talked about his defensive mind and his ability to put players in position to succeed. He then continued his pitch to free agents, quote, "We've got Pro Bowlers and playmakers at all 3 levels, myself, DeForest Buckner, and Kenny Moore. Add another playmaker to that mix, and it's going to help make this an all-time unit."
I just want to know why Zaire Franklin wasn't on this show.
Hey, I'll call him if he wants to come give his pitch.
Wait, what's our producer doing?
Oh, that dropped the ball on that one.
Oh, man. All right, that's it. Today's top headlines.
Those are your headlines today.
All right, we keep the show moving. Coming up next, we'll talk a little Knicks Pacers because, it's a little bit of Brett versus Adam in this game tonight because Adam's a huge Knicks fan. So
I hate playing the Pacers.
The Knicks come into Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and, a familiar face is going to be on the sideline tonight for the game. We'll talk about that. Also coming up, Dylan Sinn previewing IU and Purdue. Tuesday Time Capsule Trivia. That's in hour number 2. It's a Sports Rush Tuesday edition on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. There's a bus heading to Youngstown, Ohio, and I'm not on it. First road trip I will miss this year.
Kind of sad.
I have been on every Mastodons game, including the preseason game against Notre Dame. But finally, the schedule caught up with me. And this week, because the Dons are going to play a Wednesday night game in Youngstown, Ohio, and then continue traveling on to Moon Township, Pennsylvania, where they will play Robert Morris on Saturday. It's like 5 days on the road. I cannot afford that with my vacation schedule. And so I am here. There was somebody last night, one of the members of the staff, I will say, that I was talking to at Purdue Fort Wayne. And he thought that the reason I wasn't going was because I could not miss this show for 5 days. Yeah, right. But no, it's I have a day job here, marketing and sales.
Got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you got a business and you're looking to build some business and add to your business and have a solid ROI, I've got marketing plans that can help you. I certainly do. No question about it.
Yeah.
It's not beneath me to solicit for some new business and new clients. I love helping businesses find new prospects and watch them grow. And it's kind of been my specialty for 30 years, putting together successful marketing programs. So that's what I do during the day before I get in here, turn a microphone on, and yak about sports like every other guy. But anyway, Knicks Pacers tonight, and Reggie Miller will be on hand.
Yeah.
Reggie.
Great.
What was that? 8 points, 9 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that something that he did against who?
The Knicks.
That's right. Yeah.
They lost that series.
Yeah. Just got to rub that in a little bit, Adam.
They lost that series to the Knicks.
Most memorable moments, Madison Square Garden. Well, it still is a big one tonight.
Oh, yeah, and I'm not looking forward to it. Anytime we play the Pacers, specifically at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, that just always seems like they have an extra shot of juice for whatever reason. I mean, last time I went to see the Knicks go and play the Pacers down at Gainbridge Fieldhouse earlier in the season, I think Tyrese had like 30-some and 10 or 15 assists. Benedict Mathurin could not miss from three-point range. Nobody could miss. I mean, they kept leaving Miles Turner open for some threes, and of course he dropped them in. So it's going to be a tough matchup. Every time we play the Pacers, it seems to be a really tough matchup for us.
Knicks coming off the loss at home to the Celtics.
Yeah, that was painful.
Pacers are hoping Miles plays. I don't know what the final report is.
Yeah, latest I have on him is a game-time decision with the neck injury.
Yeah, he was he officially questionable or?
As of right now, he is listed as questionable for Tuesday's game against the Knicks with the neck.
Yeah, but
questionable.
But Rick Carlisle said earlier today that he was progressing nicely and he got a chance to participate in some of the practice yesterday, and they were hopeful he would be out there tonight. But Pacers return home after their West Coast trip, which ended, of course, with the loss to the Los Angeles Lakers, who didn't even have Luka.
Yeah.
So anyway, what else is happening? Oh, I was going to mention this. Homestead got that win last night.
They did.
And that is their 7th straight sectional championship. And according to my research, which again, you have to judge the person that's doing the research, not the actual research itself. But what I saw was there was not another team in the SAC, because I went through the histories of all the teams currently in the Summit Athletic Conference, not another team that has 7 straight sectional titles. So that is an all-time record in the SAC. Now, it ties a record with an area program. Norwell had gotten as many as 7. But Norwell, I believe, did not get 8. They had 7 in a row from like 2010 to 2017 or somewhere in that range. And so Norwell was 7, but Homestead tied it last night, and Homestead set the all-time record for Summit Athletic Conference schools with their 7th straight sectional championship. Just get that note out there. Rod Parker, the coach of the Homestead Lady Spartans, will join us probably after practice coming up later in the show.
I can confirm it is after practice.
And Reggie Tharp also, same.
Yep.
5:20 today, we'll talk to Snyder coach Reggie Tharp. We've also got Dylan Sinn, who will be joining us here soon. Mentioned the Mastodons hitting the road, and it's not just going for any old road trip. Part of why I'm a little disappointed I can't be on the trip is because these are monster games.
Yeah.
Huge games. You break down the current Horizon League standings. And, of course, Cleveland State has been terrific. And whether they're a surprise in the league or you have to give them credit. They've been the best defensive team in the league. They have rolled off, 13 in a row before finally getting knocked off. And they ended up getting beat by Northern Kentucky. So now in the league, Cleveland State's 12-2. The Mastodons are 11-4. Purdue Fort Wayne, a game and a half behind the Vikings. They do have one head-to-head meeting still left. That will be in Cleveland to end the regular season. So between now and then, somehow somebody's got to beat Cleveland, but the Dons can't afford to give a game back. They can't afford to lose. And so they take on 2 teams on the road this week that just so happen to be tied a game behind Purdue Fort Wayne. And so both of these teams are looking at this meeting with Purdue-Fort Wayne coming into their building as their chance to move up and get into second place. Robert Morris, who they will play on Saturday, is 12-2 at home. Youngstown State, who the Dons will play tomorrow night, is 7-4 at home. Mastodons, by the way, 6-6 on the road, not exactly a bad record when you consider that the 6-6 record, 3 of the 6 losses are at Central Florida, at Penn State, and at Michigan. And so 6-3 when they've played mid-major opponents on the road. That's not bad.
Not bad.
But the Mastodons 11-4. Robert Morris, Youngstown State, both 10-5. Milwaukee has slipped a half game behind the pack at 10-5. Milwaukee is 9-5. And then you've got Oakland, who is 7-7. Nobody else with a above 500 record, and that would include IU Indy, where they are 4-11, tied with Detroit Mercy for next to last place. Green Bay, of course, who the Mastodons just beat Saturday night, winless in Horizon League play under first-year coach Doug Gottlieb. They are 0-14 in the league and 2-23 overall. By the way, I had forgotten this, but when Brad Stevens took Butler to back-to-back Final Fours, Butler was a member of what? The Horizon League.
Very cool.
It is cool. But the Dons weren't at that time, so
right,
that's why I had forgotten that Butler was still in the Horizon League at that time. All right, we got to take a break because Dylan Sinn's going to talk to us about what's happening at Indiana, the situation surrounding Mike Woodson, what kind of Indiana team does he expect will show up on the court tonight, and what's ahead. Who are some of the candidates? Is he hearing any buzz, or does he have a favorite? And what are the realistic possibilities that Dusty May is going to be the next Indiana coach? All of that for Dylan Sinn, and we're even going to pile on and ask a little about Purdue and Michigan tonight because that's a huge game in the Big Ten standings. Huge, I say. We'll talk about it all with Dylan Sinn when he joins us next on the Sports Rush, 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Coming up in hour number 2 on the show, after 5 o'clock, we'll have Tuesday Time Capsule Trivia and a chance for you to win a large pizza to Pizza Hut. Also, we'll talk to high school girls basketball coaches Reggie Tharp of Snyder and Rod Parker of Homestead. That comes up a little bit later. Dylan Sinn getting company to write about a couple of big games tonight, to follow what's happening with Purdue and Indiana, both playing in the state of Michigan tonight.
Yeah, they're both right above us.
Huge games because, well, Purdue comes into tonight a half game in front of Michigan State and Michigan and sitting in first place. But it could completely flip, and Purdue could be looking up at those two teams depending on results tonight. So in some ways, Purdue's got a tough challenge ahead of them, and they've got to hope that Indiana finds the fortitude to overcome the Breslin Center and get a win in East Lansing. But to talk about it, we are joined by Dylan Sinn from the Journal Gazette. And Dylan, before I start talking about these games, just curious because, it's part of the talk of Super Bowl when you sit down to watch a game, if you're going to be watching at home, what kind of a snack? What do you have a go-to that you've got to have, either a open bag of some type of chip, or do you order pizza? What is your go-to for food selections when you're watching games on TV?
That's a great question. I can go several different ways. Usually some kind of chips. I'm not much of a meal guy when I'm watching the game. It's more like kind of snack food, that kind of thing. I'm more of a chips guy. I could go Doritos. I could go tortilla chips with some salsa. I could go like salt and vinegar, Lay's chips. You got all the options here. But I'm more of a snack guy when the game's on. Last week I found myself during a game, and I almost did it subconsciously. I'm dipping Oreo or Chips Ahoy cookies into a cup of milk. Man, that was a great game time snack. Not necessarily on the traditional list, but I think it's going to be pizza tonight. But
because you got to buckle up for 4 hours of basketball because one plays at 7, one plays at 9. Purdue plays first tonight, but Indiana's the bigger story, obviously, right now. So let's start with the Hoosiers and the situation around Mike Woodson. I thought it was not a coincidence that this leaked out and this information came forward the day before Dusty May and Michigan came to town. Don Fisher didn't think that had anything to do with it. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like that's too big of a coincidence, right? I feel like they wanted to avoid what could have been a pretty ugly scene, I think, at Assembly Hall. Obviously, they already had a pretty ugly scene earlier this year against Illinois when everyone was chanting for Woodson to be fired, and all the student section, half of it left at halftime. So you want to avoid something like that with then on top of that people chanting for the other team's coach. That's just not what you want to see as an administration or as a fan base or as a team, especially for a team that, while they're not in the NCAA tournament picture at the moment, are a couple of wins away from being right back on the bubble. So the way the administration is looking at it, I think, is that this season and these players deserve the most attention that they can get, right? Everyone's ready for this season to be over and for Woodson to move on and get a new coach, but this season is still happening. This team still has a lot of talent. And this administration wants to give them as best of a chance as they can to do something with this season.
I know as well as anybody that you can, with the effective use of a crowd mic, you can make 100 people sound like 1,000, or you can make 10,000 people sound like 1,000 people. What was the ovation like? Were you down in Bloomington? Did you hear it firsthand? Because I thought you were there at the game for the ovation for Dusty May.
Yeah, I was. It was more pleasant than I think it was raucous or anything like that. People weren't clamoring for him. And again, I was in Bloomington, as you said. I thought it was more polite and some people cheering for him, but it was kind of muted just because it was right before the game. The announcer kind of did it very quickly. Dusty May, coach of the Michigan Wolverines, that kind of thing. I thought that the cheer for Woodson was actually relatively similar. There were some boos mixed in for him. But I thought they were relatively similar, actually, in terms of volume and strength, quite frankly.
Who is coaching the team? Do you believe that Mike Woodson is going to hold up on his end of the bargain and will do the responsibilities expected of a head coach?
I think he will. Yeah, absolutely. I think, contrary to public opinion here, I think he has taken the job seriously over the last 4 years. I don't think he's like kind of shirked his duties or anything like that. They just haven't won enough games. Right, and like that doesn't mean that he's not doing what a head coach is supposed to do. They just haven't won, and it's time for him to move on. But I don't think that it is going to be one of those things where he's kind of playing out the string. And I think we saw that against Michigan, right? Like they were down 17 points, and he and they could have folded it up and packed it in, and didn't do that. And I think that speaks to the way this team is, while not particularly good, at least still locked in on the task at hand.
That game also showed us, though, that I think Indiana's still trying to figure out exactly what they are and what they have to do. And we're awfully far into the season for a coach to still be taking chances or guesses at what's going to work, because Indiana pulled their big off the floor and boom, all of a sudden they become a better basketball team. I don't think that was a coincidence that they played their best basketball with more of a guard-oriented or smaller lineup.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the problem all season with this roster, right, is that your two best players, or two of your best players, Umar Ballo and Malik Renew, don't really fit particularly well on the floor together. I thought it was interesting that lineup with Umar Ballo on the bench and Malik Renew at the 5 played as well as it did, because at times this year that lineup has not played very well, at least on defense. The Ballo lineup has been pretty good with Ballo and then Luke Goody at the 4. But the Renew lineup at the 5 has been pretty poor defensively overall, but it was very good in that game. I thought putting Anthony Leal on Danny Wolf was actually kind of a stroke of genius. I was shocked by that, and then it worked out, and Wolf didn't score for about, 10 minutes there. So it was a really good move, and they played well. But, yeah, they're just trying to figure something out here, and there's only 7 games left, which is not the time to be doing that.
It was funny. The officials basically let Leal just wrestle Wolf every time Wolf got anywhere near the basket, and they didn't call anything. I mean, he had 2 hands just pushing, shoving, and hugging and harassing. I mean, everything he could do with Wolf because of the mismatch in size.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Anthony Leal is a very good defensive player, but I'm sure they were letting him get away with some stuff, kind of the Zach Edey mold, where it's like you're going to get away with some stuff guarding Zach Edey because he's just so big that the refs are like, well, he should be able to power through that, right?
Yeah.
Because Anthony Leal is so much smaller than Danny Wolf. But it's interesting, in the last week or so, a week and a half, Anthony Leal has guarded Danny Wolf, who's 7 foot, and Braden Smith, who is 6 foot on a good day. So, it's a pretty good illustration of how versatile he is on the defensive end, which is really big for this Hoosiers team.
Did you get a sense when you were there on Saturday how the team has dealt with this mentally, the whole situation around their coach?
Well, so partially. Woodson was asked about that. He said it's been emotional for them, and he talked about, well, they're kids, and it's hard for them to kind of wrap their minds around sometimes. But then on top of that, we didn't get to talk to players after the game. The media, the IU did not make any players available, which I thought was a poor decision on their part. I mean, it's one of those things where you want to have unity within the Hoosier fan base. That was something that within Hoosier Nation, I should say, which is something that Scott Dolson said in his letter announcing Mike Woodson's resignation. You'd think having the players come out and say, hey, we're going to play really hard for Mike Woodson the rest of the season would be a way for that unity to grow, and they didn't give the players a chance to do that. And I thought that was a poor decision on their part that I think they should have had some players speak.
Were you present when Dusty May had his comments? Because I thought it was interesting. He didn't really have a direct denial. I mean, he said some of the things you're supposed to say. You know, I'm at Michigan now. I'm happy at Michigan, whatever. But he didn't say, I'm not interested in becoming the coach at Indiana. That's where I'm like, okay, but he didn't finish the sentence, and that leaves the door open.
Right, exactly. I was not there in the room, but I did see video of it afterward, and I think it's one of those things where his agent would probably tell him, hey, don't say you're not interested because we might be able to use this to get an extension out of Michigan, even if you are not actually interested. So I don't know how much to read into that. I think obviously he certainly could have been more forceful in his denial. I don't read too much into it in terms of he's actually interested in the job. Now, if it comes out in the next couple of weeks that, hey, he hasn't signed that extension with Michigan, which apparently they're working on right now, then maybe things start to move in a different direction here. But we'll have to see. I still think the politics of him moving on from a conference rival after 1 year would be a pretty tough look for him. But if it's your dream job, it's your dream job.
Yeah, and what'll be interesting is if the buyout changes, if he ends up getting a new contract, if they flip that buyout and add some money to it, because right now it's pretty cheap, affordable buyout, if he does decide that he wants that Indiana job. All right, we'll get to talk real quick about what's happening at Purdue. Trey Kaufman-Renn, is he or Braden Smith the vote for Player of the Year right now?
That's a fantastic question. I think you could make a case for either one of them. I think it's probably Braden Smith right now, considering just how much he does for this Purdue team on both ends of the floor. He runs the show offensively. He gets Trey Kaufman-Renn in position for a lot of his baskets. And then on top of that, he's one of the better just kind of off-the-ball defensive players in the Big Ten. His ability to read passing lanes and get steals over the last couple of weeks has been huge for Purdue's offense as they get out in transition and get some open court baskets. So I think it's Braden Smith right now, but you could convince me of Trey Kaufman-Renn as well. They've both been fantastic.
Is there anybody else in the Player of the Year in the Big Ten in that running? Because to me, it almost seems like they're competing with one another, and there's not really a big, well-known third participant.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the third participant that you could maybe talk about is Danny Wolf. Bryce Williams at Nebraska has been really good. I don't think Ace Bailey would have a chance at Rutgers just because they haven't played very well overall, even though he's been fantastic individually. Michigan State is so much of a team. There's really not a singular superstar on that team. I think you could make a case that Smith and Kaufman-Renn are the top two or two of the top three pretty easily, and that's a testament to the way Purdue's played the last couple of weeks.
What do you see this game tonight? It's an intriguing matchup. I think a lot of matchup similarities with Purdue and Michigan. What are you expecting?
Yeah, I mean, Michigan is going to be ready for this one, right? Obviously, Purdue just they came out from the opening tip in Ann Arbor or in Mackey Arena and just destroyed them a couple of weeks ago. That game was over within the first 5 minutes because Purdue just kind of broke their will early in that game. My guess is that Michigan is going to come out making sure that doesn't happen again. and Purdue is going to have to be ready because Michigan's going to throw a punch early. I do think that we're going to see a little bit more of Danny Wolf on the ball for Michigan. I think that Trey Donaldson was really badly outplayed by Braden Smith in the last game, so give Danny Wolf the ball, let him go one-on-one with Caleb First or Trey Kaufman-Renn and see if he can do some playmaking stuff and see if that can put pressure on Purdue's defense. But it's going to be a motivated Michigan team in this game, and it's going to be a fun test for Purdue, which, while it's played very well, has not played a ton of great teams over the last several weeks.
Always appreciate you, Dylan. Thanks so much for the time, and we'll look forward to your coverage on social media and at the Journal Gazette.
Absolutely, Brett. Thanks for having me on, as always.
That is Dylan Sinn joining us here on the Sports Rush. We've got a big hour still on the way. We're going to be giving you a chance to win. Tuesday Time Capsule Trivia is coming up just after 5 o'clock. Also, we will talk to sectional championship coaches. From Snyder, it's Reggie Tharp, and from Homestead, it is Rod Parker. Both will join us in hour number 2. We're just about set to take you home. It's a Tuesday edition of the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.